figured this is awesome, but why do you guys have a giant Lego set anyway?
It is a three-dimensional model of the place where I was predestined to be brutally murdered by a twisted future version of Barry.
I am the future Flash.
That guy.
But what a difference a year makes.
Hey everybody, it looks like it's almost time for a prison break. So big twist at the end, totally did not expect them to go there that fast. But I think we all assumed that Barry wasn't going to be in prison for that long this season. It was just a question of what kind of twist they would use to get him out. And I do like the direction they took this. It's a bit of a twist on the Jeff Johns thinker arc from the comics from the Wally West era. So I'll try to explain Easter eggs as we go along. But, really big twist about Cecile getting powers and leading up to big Iris stuff happening later this season. But just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. Starting with number 10, how about that Savitar explainer? Probably the funniest way of explaining an entire season's worth of plot. Hey, what do you guys have Legos for? What's this all about? Iris sounds like she's almost practiced that explainer. Like she's had to explain to other people what she's been up to. Oh, there was this evil speedster who was a duplicate of my husband who was coming for me. They even drop a Simpsons reference. Embiggen isn't a word. Someone should tell Iris that embiggen is a totally cromulent word. But number 9, obviously one of the big twists of the episode, Cecile gets mysterious powers and they go through this long list of things, just crossing off some of the bigger theories about how this could have happened. She says she wasn't on the bus, so she's not a bus meta. She didn't get doused with dark matter when Barry came out of the Speed Force. It wasn't alien abduction, which is probably something from the Dominators, just because they're the last big alien invasion that we had. And then no magic totem is just a reference to Vixen and Zari on Legends this season. And they actually did reference the Legends a couple times because the Dwarf Star villain uses Dwarf Star alloy as part of how he got his powers, and Ray Palmer uses Dwarf Star alloy in his suit, and they had Palmer Tech. So there was a lot of Atom comic book stuff crossing over with this episode. And I almost forgot all the Pokemon. Turns out Cisco has Pokemon on the brain more than we thought. Bulbasaur, because he's the cutest one. Why am I thinking about Pokemon at a time like this? There were some people in my timeline that took offense at that. They're like, there's no way that Bulbasaur is the cutest one. Feel free to argue about that one in the comments. But number 8, the actual explainer for how she got her powers is that she had latent dark matter stuck in her brain during the original particle accelerator explosion, and whatever biological systems became active during her pregnancy triggered that to become active. So she got her powers because of the pregnancy, but the baby itself is not a meta. That's telling you what they're not doing. So there was some specific explainer stuff happening to tell you what's not going to happen in the future. 1, the baby will not be a meta. It's going to be a girl, so a lot of people are like, hey, wait a minute, does that mean that it's going to turn into Coffee Shop Girl? Because we don't know if she's a meta. It kind of seems like she is, but just add that to the list of theories about who she could be, although I still think that she's going to be Barry's daughter or his granddaughter. I know a lot of people wanted it to be a more comic booky twist. We still don't know what they're going to name the girl, but I think they just want to let us know that no, we're not going to turn this into another Flash. Joe already has one child that has Flash powers, Wally West. Iris will get temporary Speed Force powers later this season. A third child to get Speed Force powers would be a little redundant, so it'll be interesting to find out who this child is, but I'm not expecting any super big twists. Maybe a couple comic book Easter eggs, though. Number 7, Barry tries to help Goldberg get out of prison, which sort of tees up the Dwarf Star plotline. He drops another Shawshank reference talking about how hope is the most dangerous thing in here, but eventually does end up getting him out by the end of the episode. I was kind of hoping that he would be around later this season for a big prison break brawl, but it looks like they're taking that in a different direction based on the twist at the end. But for the most part, it does seem like Goldberg ends the episode knowing that Barry is the Flash, along with another big character too. But the whole thing with the Goldberg character about Barry trying to keep him hopeful, keep him optimistic, the movie ending that you don't usually think that you would get, I got to marry my sweetheart Iris. I got the movie ending. That's him maintaining his sense of optimism while he's in prison, even though he gets bummed out. That's part of what makes Barry Allen the Flash. It's just his sense of positivity in the face of stuff like this. So number 7, enter Dwarf Star. If you guys didn't know who he is, he's a big comic book character. I talked about him a little during the trailer video I did earlier, but in the comics, he uses a mechanical belt to shrink stuff down. The way they explain him as one of the bus metas in this episode is that he stole Dwarf Star tech and then got doused while he was on the bus. So the combination of dark matter with the Dwarf Star alloy just gave him the metahuman ability to shrink stuff down and bring it back up to normal size. just like during the Ant-Man trailer. They actually used a couple of twists that we saw during that, like when they threw the giant Hello Kitty Pez dispenser, he's throwing big stuff at them at the end of the episode. But talk about coincidence. Number 6, he shrinks the entire building down, which is supposed to be metahuman proof. It was all done for that big twist. Like, oh, this has anti-speedster cameras. It has all kinds of technology to keep metas out. And then boom, just shrinks it right down. The only thing that would have made that funnier is if he would have popped a handle out the top, just like Hank Pym did during that Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer. Probably one of the funniest twists, though, behind his character is that he has this great power, but he's just using it to collect shit. Like, he's just shrinking things down that he really wants, only it's the real thing. It's just miniaturized versions. Remember how every once in a while the Flash TV show will take shots at Arrow, like Iris joking about what happened during their wedding, during the crossover, how they kind of stole their thunder? Here, the new mayor talks about how their crime rate is crazy high, but it's still not quite as high as the crime rate of Star City. So just another dig at Arrow. I'm sure Stephen Amell will find some way to get them back in a future episode. But number 5, they get shrunk down, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids style. They mostly use it for comedy, but like I said, they did that big Savitar joke. They have the Lego set. We haven't seen that since season 3. Elongated Man wasn't here for any of that stuff, so he doesn't know what they did last year. But Harrison Wells drops a Doctor Who reference when he talks about reversing the polarity. When it backfires, we also learn Harrison Wells is really upset with himself. We learn Gorilla Prison, like Gorilla City from last year, is actually much worse than normal prison. They throw their poop at you. Number 4, Barry versus the prison warden. It seemed like they were setting him up as an antagonist for the back half of the season, potentially for season 5, because the warden is a big comic book character, so it makes sense that he has this philosophy that all the people in Iron Heights are monsters. Barry is like the antithesis of that, like he believes in the good in everyone, so it makes sense that they would logically set him up as an antagonist, and Barry would start looking through all the different files of the prisoners eventually, maybe trying to help them out in a future season. He's kind of busy this season with Thinker stuff, so maybe they'll loop back around. But number 3, the whole big twist at the end of the episode is that the prison warden catches him on camera being the Flash and is now selling metahumans to the blacksmith, who's coming back in, I guess, next week's episode, and it still doesn't seem to have any connection with what DeVoe is doing, even though Team Flash references that. So the really big thing about this, you have to think about this long term. If the prison warden, who's a relatively big figure in local law enforcement, knows that Barry is the Flash, and he really hates Barry, is he going to keep his secret after this episode is done, or after whatever arc he's part of? Because that seems like too big of a risk during season 5, season 6, whatever going forward. Like, enemies knowing who the Flash is just spells trouble for everybody in general. So unless they're going to wipe his mind at the end of the season, it seems like they're setting the warden up to die, because he seems pretty evil right now. Way more evil than the comic book version of himself. But you guys can let me know in the comments, do you think the prison warden survives to next season, continuing to know that Barry Allen is the Flash? Number 2, Team Flash considers what's going on with DeVoe's plan. Does he want them all in prison? Does he want all the things that just happened to happen? Like, how is he moving chess pieces around the board? Because when the prison warden calls Blacksmith to sell another metahuman, it has nothing to do with the Thinker. It's almost like this small ecosystem within the Thinker's plan, because he has all those metahumans that are locked up too. And it sounds like there's a prison break coming next week. So it sounds like we were building towards that anyway. But this might be how all those bust metas wind up getting out. Like, he rounds them up, they all get captured, he wants them to get thrown in prison so that they're all in the same place, but then the events of next week's episode or the episode after that happen, and they use that to break out, and they're all there together. He doesn't have to go hunt them down one at a time anymore. But just remember that, they hung up 8 photos, so we're down to 4. I didn't think that there were that many. I was trying to remember all the ones that they caught so far. But obviously, number 1, big twist is Cecile ends the episode still having her powers, and Caitlin said that they should go away when she gives birth. So I'm wondering how far off that's going to be, and whether or not there'll be some other twist with those. Because if Iris is supposed to get Speed Force powers, or, manifest them fully, like we all think that she was manifesting them in this moment here, so it's already begun with her, it just hasn't developed to the point that Cecile's powers have. How many episodes will Iris actually have those powers? Because it seems like she's only going to be in the costume for episode 16. So what might end up happening is episode 15 and episode 17 after that, there's still like some aftershocks going on, but she slowly ramps up and starts doing funnier and funnier things until they actually realize what's going on in episode 16. But if you were a little confused about the reasoning and the logic behind Cecile getting powers, how those powers work, and what it means for the future of the baby, or what it doesn't mean, like doesn't mean that it's going to be Daniel West, all you need to take away from this is that within the world of the Flash, where all these metas are running around, you have all this dark matter giving people powers. Pregnant women who were around during the original blast and have some sort of residual dark matter in their bodies can get powers from pregnancy. So I think we're all probably in agreement now, and hopefully you understood after this episode that they're just leading up into that, like, oh my god, how do I have powers? Oh, maybe it's because you're pregnant, like Cecile was. But if there were any other Easter eggs in the episode that you guys spotted that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments. I did talk about some of the Goldberg wrestling Easter eggs during my trailer video, but he won a couple titles. Those were in the numbers when they flashed his bio up on the screen. There's a new round of that Blast Ring giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and share the video using those tools on the watch page. Congratulations to the winner from that last trailer video I did, Young Adapt. Please private message me so I can get your contact details. Click here to rewatch that Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer, and click here for my video on that mystery girl. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.